Hello and welcome back to the True Value Podcast. It is I, Christian, your host and wonderful council member. Sadly, I do not have the rest of my guys here today, but today we're talking to a very good friend of mine. His name is David, and I'm very happy to have him here as we talk and dive into actual understanding of reality as it is, and that is the best way I can put it, as he integrates a system that he has built himself.
Reality as it was.
That's a better way to put it, actually. Yeah. Now, I think the defining quality of having these conversations in general is just knowing that doesn't exist.
Yeah, of course. We're just talking.
We're just talking.
That's just an occasional person that I'm also talking to. This is the body.
Yeah. So, can we really just go into what fundamentally you see as our universal consciousness?
Okay, so I like to play with words a lot when I hear keywords, and so whenever I hear you say or anyone say universal, I immediately repeat in my head, you inversed. And so that's kind of how I see it. This universe, any universe that's being experienced, is subjectively the inverse of the you that's experiencing it. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely does.
Wonderful.
Because it's what we see as our reality is mostly the output of what we internalize it as.
Correct. And it just like cellular division, where a very simplistic process turns into a very complex system very fast. So does consciousness. So does awareness. The moment awareness is within nothingness, that simplistic, intrinsic being cascades into all that is simultaneously. So it becomes everything and nothing because of awareness all at once.
Okay, so that in itself is a pretty complex idea. Where did you define the line for yourself, and how did you start integrating this system for your life personally?
Okay, so like a lot of people trying to just find a spiritual path, I did end up following a bit of learning about the chakra system and different ways of referencing the self. And I just found that I had this really great skill early on to abstract and really do a good job at extracting the pattern and the knowledge and removing the narrative or the IP. Okay. Like any game can switch IP to IP and remask or retexture it's the way it presents itself. I feel as though I've been very good at abstracting and just seeing the fundamental pattern behind the experience that's being had, not so much fully being embodied in the experience that's transpiring.
Okay, so instead of being uniquely attached to the reality that it was, you were extracting the information of what it seemed to be so that you could understand and comprehend the actuality.
Kind of. It's like when you read a math word problem at school, and it's your job to figure out what the math problem is in that word problem.
Okay, so it was more of the deep thinking and seeding the knowledge.
Yeah, and I don't really think I've ever observed my reality differently. It's always been, well, if I could read a math problem and then I could extract just the symbols that gave me the actual equation, then all I ever needed to do is pay attention to the symbols and equation, and the narrative and storyline and the self and the attachment could all just completely go away.
Okay, so you are like me in that sense then, because we're both good at analysis.
I would say so.
Just the complexities of what's going on, what's triggering these things, how's this...
Cause and effect.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing leading to another.
That's
it's pretty intuitively observed.
And that's what kind of makes us good at facilitating in general as individuals. is understanding and having the awareness of what's all being
multiple
placed.
moving parts.
Absolutely.
Not
So
just not just myself as a moving part, and I'm only aware of my movements in
thinking in dimensions.
Correct. I would say that's a good explanation. I use dimensions and density as like a framework internally and externally continually.
At all times, because
All times.
if you can see where things are panning out in conversations, you can understand the cause and effect of what's going to be here, and how that will ripple out and affect to everything else.
And I would further that with also saying it increases an amount of empathy and understanding where you're creating parallels between things that normally wouldn't even be correlated. The traumatic thing that your mother's going through is easily paralleled and correlated to the thing that your nephew went through, but they're not connected, but you become a bridge of bringing awareness to perception to both of them because of your ability to multidimensionally hold those two relationships.
And understand where the cause and effects have relatability.
Correct. Exactly. And that way you can give each one a reflection of each other, even though they never even had to meet each other for the sake of healing.
Minus comparison.
Well, yeah, there's distinctions.
Only for the sake of the individual themselves and not wanting to
Correct.
Enable them feeling they're being compared.
Correct. No, of course. It's not comparisons in that way, and like she handled it this way, so you should. It's more like you're not alone in your experience, and here's how. And you know, and most people wouldn't have considered that these two experiences are related to each other. I'm not saying I'm making a comparison between the two.
No.
I'm making a parallel, a similarity between the two. Correct. Yeah, I believe that's what I said.
Just a little more intricately, but yes, it's pretty much exactly where we're at.
Yeah. We can relate to each other way more than we don't.
Absolutely.
We should.
It's kind of a pain in the butt because we can actually see relatively where not having this uniform connection on a more regular basis doesn't lead to our own internal growth and relatability with others.
Yeah, exactly.
So I enjoy the fact that we're even able to have these deep, intricate conversations because most people aren't thinking within the multiple dimensions, and those that are don't always have it in a light where this is where we get to experience it together. Instead, they use it for not only manipulatory means, but control.
Yeah, I would agree. Like because if we don't talk about it, then they can keep utilizing those tactics unblamed. Uncalled out.
I would say without accountability.
Yes, correct. That's a more streamlined way of saying it. But to go back to what you were saying, the last thing, it was really good. I just wanted to make a small adjustment.
So how it's being utilized in other forms and where that connects.
You said that you don't think that they're thinking multidimensionally. I would say that most people have an internal framework for multidimensional experiences. Like tons of people have cold switches and different ways of operating in different worlds. The biggest thing is are they aware of those transitions?
Are they aware of how they transition?
Correct. Because we are observing them move through multiple dimensions. We see them go from parent to sibling to cash register to playing a video game as God of War or something. Like we see them make multiple cognitive dimensional changes and operate just fine. They themselves aren't aware of each of those transitions, which in turn makes them just a byproduct of the pattern that's at hand, instead of a sovereign one who's getting to choose
the cycle
where they're going. Yeah.
They're cycles.
Correct.
So, I mean, that I guess can lead into the next question, which is, how do you feel like the never-ending cycles are holding individuality back instead of understanding the sovereignty of them being their own?
I don't know if it's so much holding them back. I think we're always framed by infinity.
Let me change the way I framed that then.
Okay.
Not necessarily holding them back, but how do you think that their cycles are not being framed by interpersonal connection and more controlling the outcomes of their individual choice as they are not aware of that cycle?
Got it. Okay, so this is kind of like we're getting into like free will and determinism. Do we have free will or is it predetermined? And I kind of see it as like
we hold the space for that cycle until we decide to determine a different outcome. Is the way I think about it.
I would say so. I have a couple different frameworks that I kind of approach free will from. One is in bandwidths, and everybody has free will. Everybody is in a free will cycle, and within that cycle, they can experience what it is to have free will. But once they reach the extent of what that cycle has to offer, then they feel as though their will is impeded upon and forced to then break out, reach critical threshold, and have to go to a higher level up or die off.
Yeah.
Like we see it happen.
Shrink or grow.
Correct. And so that's one way of expressing free will. But outside of each of those cycles is a predetermined pattern that is systematically delivering experiences to us that are predetermined, that we don't have any say in if that's what they are or not.
And what if that predetermination just so happens to go down to the unconscious mind and where it has seeded certain things from their past experience?
So I think that's a good way of saying it. We could also try to dive into the unconscious mind right now as well. Well, I want to go into my other framework that I kind of use sometimes when approaching free will, and then I want to get into unconscious mind because we have to work backwards, and if we go straight to the unconscious, we've skipped a few steps.
Well, considering that we both re-engineer how we approach things in general, let us dive into that.
Okay, so I already explained like the two forms of predeterminism, how I think things can be predetermined, but we still experience free will here and now because we're put in free will loops, and within that loop we have completely, just like in a RPG or like a role play game or like a sandbox game on a video game, you can go anywhere you want, but once you've explored everywhere, it's like
you've hit a wall.
There's no more things that you can explore. So what's the next DLC? So here's my next little framework I use. I like the word emergent a lot, and I also really like the word procedural. So procedural means that there's a preset pattern, but the pattern has a pattern. The pattern has a pattern of randomness.
Yeah, which also goes into the quantum mechanics of universal energy.
Correct. So I learned this game.
There's infinite potentials and impotentials at the same time.
Yeah. I try to simplify it a little more to like a video game. You ever play like Minecraft?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you know how like in Minecraft, as you explore the map does not exist as it is until after you've explored it. Yeah. And in the game it even explains that it's a procedurally generated map. So once you've explored it, it's permanent. If it has not been explored yet by you as the observer, it does not exist. So I see free will as kind of like this. If you're ever operating off of a positively polarized point or trajectory, you are working off of an emergent reality. Everything available to you.
Same thing with No Man's Sky.
Correct, yes. But if you're operating off of negative, reductive, restrictive energetic patterns, then you are currently in a state of re-experiencing old things, repatterning, which means you are not emerging, you're not in a procedural state, you're in a predetermined state. And you can be assured that everything you experience from here on out is going to be a lot of what you've already experienced in the past, because you're stuck within that free will loop and you've reached the extent of what can be experienced there. and you are too stubborn because you're attached to that loop and its comfortability that you don't want to expand out of it. You don't want to say what I've experienced already is small and to make room for what's going to come next. You want to keep making what you've experienced big, which keeps you in that loop of predetermined outcomes and experiences.
Which is why, we and some of our other friends say we just really don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah, I know, but I'm for sure the only thing I know is nothing.
I know
nothing. I could be assured that I know nothing, and when I learn something, I'm just learning more of nothing. I can't overvalue the things I know in comparison to what I can learn here and now. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't accumulate and coherently learn and understand the things I know, so when I am in the here and now, I can present them at the table appropriately.
And I like how you put it as the here and now, which also can be tied into understanding how to be present.
Very much so.
Because as much as people are stuck in their loop, it's mostly designated from what their past was,
Mm-hmm.
and what their potential future that they're trying to create is, instead of what is here and what is now and what can this create as long as I function within it.
Yeah. How do I improve this exact moment? And in improving this moment, I'm creating a positive trajectory for my actions, and by creating that positive trajectory, I am assured to be in a procedural state, which means the next thing I experience will be new and nuanced and diverse in comparison to what I've experienced in the past, because I know I'm operating off of that positive trajectory. That's why the here and now is so important.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm over there, I can only think about over here, which means my perception is in that negative sequence, those patterns, and then what I can expect to have after is a lot of what's happened before.
Because we ourselves are a reflection of our inner.
Correct. Yeah, and you can't have anything you don't give yourself.
Ooh, that one hit me a little bit. That one hit me a little bit. Okay, good. No, exactly. And that's why I've, even within my own experience recently, it's been more about what does self-love really look like to me? How do I give myself the love that I myself try to give to so many others, instead of just focusing on if I could create that loving place, presence, existence within myself, how will that reflect outward?
Yeah. I boil it into a moment sometimes. You know, when you're on a plane and they say, like, if the masks come down, you have to put your mask on before you put the mask on of your children. You're going to be completely useless to all of these people that you have immense love for, that you're dishing out your energy to, if you don't have a foundation to continually stand on as you feed them. And so the number one mouth is yours. And from that point of stability, you are able to produce so much more good in the long run than in short bursts of martyrdom.
Feeling like you already have everything figured out when you can acknowledge that you don't, and that you can learn.
Correct. And those opportunities for you to assist people with what you've learned come because you've learned it, not because you're out there trying to say, hey, I have something to teach you.
Facts. Because it's not about what you can teach them, it's about what they will teach themselves through learning.
It's also about what we can experience together while we learn.
Because relationships are foundationally the point of connection, which helps with growth in the first place.
Because sometimes I try to get away from the word learning, but like, it's a really good word. I think experience or integrating is like another really good word. The reason being is because when I think of learning, I think of knowledge that already exists that I'm consuming. But if we're actually trying to do what it is we say we're trying to do and reach that procedural point, reach that emergent state, then I think it's much more important to find language that doesn't put so much weight on what we previously knew
What we can continually grow
but
into.
what we can gain to know. Yeah, exactly. And so I do love learning, and I want to keep saying that, but there's also other words like exploring that I use a lot, or even experimenting.
See,
and I think learning
that's
is what
important.
happens after the fact, and I think we do a lot of forgetting that we are the tester, we're the experimenter, we're the person who is presetting the information before we get to learn it. And so we get stuck in this hyper intellectual consuming information that already exists state and say I'm learning instead of finding those emergent points where the information doesn't already exist and consuming
I'm experiencing something new also opens a different pathway. As we learn to more integrate the other parts of language that help with bridging different synapses, it helps us intellectualize in a different way.
Yeah, and I like that you say that too, and then the bridges as well, because then you start to realize when you've learned one thing, and even if it doesn't seem like in the same domain, and you start picking it up in another, you realize you've already learned it because of how transferable your framework allows that skill level to just transfer. You could be like there was this story of like a pastry chef. I'm gonna butcher it, and I'm not even gonna look it up, so don't even like quote me.
Oh no.
But like of a pastry chef that like was just like really, really good with their like hands and stuff, and reached like 45 years old, was like 4-star, 5-star restaurant pastry chef, made tons of money, and then just because they were really good at that, they went to school to become like a nurse, and then they became a doctor, and then they became a surgeon, and they were interviewed, and they were just basically saying like all of it just was like so easy. Like the muscle memory of doing everything with my hands was so easy because of how transferable those skills from being a pastry chef was. Like, but most people wouldn't make those dimensional skill adjustments and think that this is something that this person is capable of because they're apples and oranges.
Well, you can't be a doctor because you're a pastry chef.
Or it's not so much that you can't be, but that it shouldn't have came that easy to you in that quick of succession. I'm not saying that you couldn't have been. No. It's saying that like you already were a surgeon because you were a pastry chef. Now you just had the physical representation of that truth that was already there.
Well, yeah, and the way maybe I didn't deliver it properly in that moment, but understanding that this in itself, while he was taking time and patience and needing it the way it needed to happen, so that it came out with that perfect trajectory, transferred into I have to do this very procedurally, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So that the projected
outcome he had a framework that was preset from that learning that allowed that dimensional switch like so smooth. Yeah. And this happens everywhere. And as you start thinking dimensionally, you start to open up awareness. You start to open up avenues of decisions for you to be able to do and explore and learn from. Anyway, I digress.
So, okay, when it comes to that and those connections, how do you feel that ego itself plays a huge part in limiting belief?
Okay, so people have different ways. We first got to really like,
or should I say, not belief but perception.
We gotta get down. We gotta get a stronger point of reference when we're talking about ego, I think, because there's multiple definitions. I feel like when you get to a point dimensionally, ego is just your third dimensional point of reference. It's specifically it is limitation. Yeah. It's not that it is limiting you. It's not that
your choice is what's limiting.
Intrinsically, universally, its role in reality is limiting. It's put a bubble of awareness around you, around what you are. And so it's like for you to be able to experience anything, for you to be able to walk, talk, move through a third dimensional point of reference, You have to have a sphere around awareness that allows you to localize at your body. If we are consciousness, and consciousness is animating all that is, then what it needs is a cognitive structure that allows it to stay tethered to a being.
Okay.
That is your ego. The issue comes is when us as the soul identifies as the ego, and I am now the person and the self, we get caught up in the story. And
instead of being the existence, witnessing.
Correct. So I just want to make sure we have our definition of what ego is. Ego's not bad. It's intrinsically structured there to give us a first-person point of view of reality. If without it, we could not have one. It's our mistake for believing we are the ego, and then therefore we believe it limits us.
Okay, perfect. So that's where I'm going with it.
Okay.
So how do you feel that having that egoic state of being is limiting in where we can perceive trajectory?
Only in the fact that we believe we are it. I don't think it can limit us when we're the soul. All it does, it gives us a platform here and now to present what's happening internally.
And if internally that is based off of previous and or future circumstance, they are not finding presence.
So no, how do you explain that? Yeah, so this is still identifying with
the ego.
The ego.
Itself.
The statement that's made is still identifying with the ego itself, because when you are identified with the soul, there is no
If you were identified
previous
with the witness.
Yeah, but there is no previous story that you would be projecting forward.
No, because all that is
the ego's information it's holding on to solidify you in a first person point of view.
Yeah.
That's all that is. It's like yeah, that's it. You'd have to reiterate the question again for me to reiterate the answer.
That's fair. I'm not thinking that far ahead right now. Okay. So
as far, like, how do I think it's limiting us? I don't think it's limiting us so far as we are identifying with the soul. And as long as we are identifying with the soul, the ego is just the stage. It's just the actor. It's just the face. It's just the mascot from which we have available to use and evolve and morph according to our will to present us in the most genuine way.
which ties into your authenticity. If you are being authentic as you view the world.
You are not denying the ego. You are the active orchestrator of the ego.
That is, I'd say that's more of the point of where you integrate and combine with understanding that it is not separate of you. It is just you.
It is just you. It's just, once I am, that is not. I create spatial division. So because I hold ego, I am. Anything that I can identify separate from that point of self-reference becomes that is not.
Okay.
So like the ego, sometimes thoughts, everything, like we because I am, those things become separate. My thoughts become separate than me. My urges become separate than me.
That's where we start diving into the conscious versus unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. This is where once you get to a point of walking around outside of identifying with the ego, subconscious patternings become extremely apparent. You start to observe your own patterns from an internal point of view, almost like playing a game from third person.
Sorry, there's just...
No, you're good. You're good.
There's a lot of firing going on. How would you suggest other people understand how to integrate themselves so that they can see beyond the confinements of their own egoist perception.
Okay. So there's a couple processes. You can always try to skip to the end, or you can start at the beginning, just like working out. If you're gonna want to
reverse engineering.
Yeah, there's reverse engineering to get to a point of that state if that's their desire, which it's not required to be. Everybody is operating on the level that they want to operate at. There's pathways to raise and lower in dimensional awareness to operate at different levels. The biggest point is that for the longest time, everybody's been telling themselves their story from the moment they were born, reiterating everything that they've experienced. But they've been doing this unconsciously. You have been self-referencing. So like I said, I am, therefore that's not. You have been self-referencing unconsciously, indefinitely, since your birth. What I would say is the best point of reference for those who aren't super familiar with being inside themselves, or like aren't super familiar just with this language in general, is start with just consciously self-referencing. Yeah. Just like continually, every single time you hear or think the word I, me, we, us, anytime you're referenced in any way, make it a ping, make it a I'm self-referencing. This is me here now. I am here now. This is me here now. Like, I am self-referencing. I'm not doing it repetitively, or like, I'm not doing it in chants and mantras. I'm doing it in my day-to-day. I'm trying to hold a level of awareness of what's happening internally. And anytime self-reference happens, I just ping it. Make a tally mark. Make a tally mark. And what this does is slowly you become more and more embedded in what's happening internally. You slowly become more and more, like, you'll start to get used to making pings. And you then, once you realize those pings are happening, you create this point of separation. And then the next step after that, once you kind of become very aware of your self-reference, of yourself, then you start learning yourself. This is where you start to try to this is where most people who would be watching this video and understanding what I'm saying would be wanting to start to pattern chart and start
understanding their patterns.
Correct.
So they can recognize when things are going out of
correct. And so you're no longer pinging yourself. You're taking this practice of pinging every single time you self-reference to pinging every single time I want to smoke a cigarette. Pinging every single time I want to brag about my money. Pinging every single time I want to go, I look at a not just female, I'm bisexual, but like another individual lustfully. Pinging, and like what this does is it creates a roadmap for you to be able to learn yourself in a way that you can then become the person who's choosing the cause and effect. And as you do so, you say, I no longer want to ping this. And you stop pinging it, and it goes away. So like some people will be having anxiety, and that's caused by ego. And it'll just be like every single time the anxiety is coming up, I'm going to ping it, and then I'm going to self-reference. I'm going to ping it, I'm going to self-reference. And then once I become aware of it, I'm going to stop. And I'm giving my body, I've offered my awareness to this thing, and now I'm giving it permission to leave.
I can say that I've honestly integrated a lot of that over the last year and a half, 2 years.
Perfect. I don't think I'm saying anything people don't like already know.
No,
it's just a different way of saying it.
Absolutely. It's more intellectually inclined, and that's okay, because like ultimately, if you can understand the foundationalism of where you can start identifying your habits, you can change your habits.
You have to start at ground zero.
Absolutely.
It starts with the self.
It does. It starts with, what do I want different from where I already am? And how can I identify the moments where, like, for myself personally, it was like, what is triggering my frustrations, my angers, my deep-seated and rooted, like, outbursts?
And to find that out, you have to put attention on it for a while to discover it. That's that pinging. If you don't and you just ignore it, that old energies will just keep cycling in the background because you're the fuel for it.
And that's when you're identifying, like, okay, what was the root cause of this effect that's just erupting subconsciously, instead of understanding, how is it identifying with my subconscious, and then what rooted that I have within my stored memory bank. And then understanding where it came from, offering, like, for myself personally, was like offering myself forgiveness for things that weren't even necessarily my fault, and understanding forgiveness for myself for things that were.
Yeah, especially because like the ego identifies, I am. So anything that's happening, especially a rampant ego, is going to want to identify even with the worst of things, because it just wants to feel. It wants the energy. It needs that to sustain itself. It's much more powerful when it has attention on it. That's not bad. A strong ego is good. But when an ego is strong, but it was created unconsciously, then you have a war. And what happens when you realize this is you can have multiple egoic frames inside you at once. You can have one egoic frame that really doesn't want to identify, doesn't want to hold these thoughts, and then you have another one that doesn't, and then they go to war together.
See, and that's where I think within my own integration of these processes.
Only when this is happening unconsciously, I might add. Like,
yeah.
You can be a very conscious constructor of your egoic forms.
But in terms of them going to battle, instead of learning to work together.
Well, yeah. But if one's unconscious and one's conscious, you don't get to say what that unconscious one does.
Until you're able to sit down at the table of self.
This is the case.
And that's where it's come into more of a living experience of, okay, which levels of myself, and how can I imagine myself as those people when I was in those periods of experience?
Yeah.
And how do I identify with the feelings that were erupting within me, and was I able to soothe myself there? Which I also find is when people say, we become that which we did not have growing up. Because when you can identify that which you did not have, you can also identify with what you have created to supply the demand in that area then.
I would agree.
So I'd say that in this life, and like the experience that we are actually creating cohesively within ourselves, and integrating tactics of emerging and merging with the unconscious, subconscious mind, is where we find the deliverance from our actual egoic controller of self.
Yeah, I would say it's how we reduce the power of a rampant ego.
More coming into humble and stoicism.
Yeah, because it's not because everything serves you to a point. So I think the framework we're talking about is specifically dismantling unconscious structures and only leaving room for conscious behavior.
Yeah.
But once you've done that, you're working from that emergent state, and so the continual repetitive structures and patterns and tools you use to dismantle the strength of the unconscious ego, they'll no longer serve you. And you'll need new frameworks and new structures to move on to for you to be able to operate cohesively or feel like you have meaning or forward momentum at that trajectory now. Especially once you've been able to dismantle that strength of the unconscious behavior, your desire and drive for progression becomes that much more invigorated.
Because it also, in my experience, made me more conscious of wanting that greater incorporation of self.
Yeah.
So that I could be better, not only for myself, but
for ourselves.
For ourselves.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a collective of people.
I like to say that me is just a time-stamped in we.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
But you have to, but so like we are always we are unified, and we are teaching unification. But it's important to realize that like unification is only ever reached through individualization. All that is can't be affirmed by itself unless the individuated points of itself that sees themselves as sovereign recognize themselves as part of it. Otherwise, it's a non-cohesive symbiotic relationship. Hi, you. Got this little guy.
Yeah, Bandit came to say hi and dive in a little bit too. When you say symbiotic relationship, that's also just understanding the incorporation of all sides of yourself into one to identify the multiple things that keep you within the separated loops within self. Correct?
Yeah, and it's also just the necessity of those selves being present and in place. All that is requires each point of individuation to affirm that it is. Otherwise, it's like, what's the point? One wanted to know itself. I am, therefore that's not. But what is not and what is am, and it goes through a continual justification of all that is and what we're experiencing. So any point that's removed completely create a point that's removed and sees itself as separate from all that is not serving all that is.
No, it is self-identified.
It is self-identified. But a point of self that is sovereign and self-identified and still acts as though we are one is the utmost of servitude for all that is. So we reach unification through individualization. But those individuals have to hold on to the intrinsic truth that we're one and behave as such.
Very much so, which I guess also comes down to groundwork foundations that societally surround us in general, and programming and all of the other individual things that come with it.
We have a desire, and then logical systematic justification creates the pattern that would have to be experienced for that desire to be even attainable.
Or integratable into.
Correct. And so we, as the point of free will, get to choose a destination, and then all that gives us the systematic justification of how to get to that destination.
But it's also up to us to enact what is going to create that.
You have to be the actor. I'm just saying, like, it all starts with that want that you create. And that anything is possible. There's just a systematic process that has to transpire for that possibility to be recognizable in the third dimension.
So would you say that that is a key point in understanding metaphysics and metaphysical creation?
I would say there's a lot of key points in understanding metaphysical creation, but I would say that's
as we would like to call it, manifestation.
I like
we manifest the thought process and develop what it actually will take and implement that.
Mm-hmm.
Does it only arise?
Correct. I 100% agree. Perfect knowledge does not action does not require perfect knowledge, but perfect knowledge requires action. And so you have to start asking the questions and put things in motion and conceptualize an outcome and then create the hypothesis. Like, all of these things have to happen. So I stay a little away from manifestation sometimes because there's a lot of conversation about how you can just completely restructure your reality, and then you have a lot of individuals who live within delusion that read those statements and get stuck in free will loops where they're not actually moving forward, but just repeating taglines that people are professing because it makes their body and their anatomy feel good when these things are said. That itself is not a bad thing, but it's like a half-truth.
Well, I mean, I think that's more of affirmation. And with that, manifestation is not affirmation. Affirmation is part of the process that you have to incorporate in order to manifest.
Like I said, to operate from that procedural state, you have to be positively charged. You have to be positively polarized. Otherwise, you cannot. So the affirmation allows you to maintain that internal coherent emotional state.
But that's also why we talk about the 21-day cycle when it comes to formulating habits. Because as you enact it and as you speak it, it then becomes a rewiring tool for creation of the reality.
100%. It's just really important to stay grounded in the actions that are required by the individual. And I think it gets, the actions that are required by the individual get lost a lot.
We do, and I think that also, well, you and I specifically know and understand ADHD on a very, very well-rounded level. So it's really, if you were going through where you're diverting from the topic and the thing that you're doing, you know how frustrating it is, because you and I are both ADHD and very much on the autism spectrum. Once you escape from what task you're hyper-focused on, it's very hard to come back. So I think that where I'm leading in this conversation is
It's because we like momentum.
Yeah. And if you're on that momentous track, that's why it's so frustrating when you're getting diverted from what you're doing. I think that when anybody is getting rerouted from where they're trying to go, it makes it very difficult to sustain action in doing it.
I agree. Remember when I was talking about how you can have like multiple egoic internal frameworks fighting each other, especially if any of them were created subconsciously?
It's the, I gotta do this, but I need this.
One of the, at least in my opinion, one of the biggest things that are happening in the background for ADHD people is like, you are able to because at the frame rate per second, you're able to observe, absorb, and project information. Your ability to unconsciously create egoic patterns and frameworks become that much more potent. And if for that individual, if they're not holding a hyper awareness about their egoic forms, then there is a continual fight and array for who's driving at any given time. And so they're fighting over the driver's seat. And so this also is a thing that starts to get solved as you get closer and closer to yourself, where your ADHD is no longer a crippling factor, but it becomes a team of individuals all working towards the same goal internally. Because you have the capability of maintaining multiple egoic forms simultaneously internally and have them communicate simultaneously.
And I know that this is where people bridge that gap of, wait, are you talking about people with multi-personality disorders? But it's not necessarily that they have multiple personalities, but they have one personality that is split in between.
They have a personal reality.
Yeah.
I have a personal reality. Like, there's not personalities. The personality you see is my output. You'll always see the same output.
But
it'll always. But what's going into the input before you ever experience my output is a reality itself. Is a hyper communicated chain network of multiple individual egoic forms that have tasks and jobs and organization specialties, and I have but it's still any output that is being received by an external form is only still ever receiving this one personality. This personality is just governed by its personal reality.
And that personal reality also came from previous lived circumstance.
I would say it's informed. Your personal reality has been
developmental stages.
Your personal reality has been developing from the conception of your individualized point of emergence.
Yeah.
And that personal reality is traveling from every personality to personality, or life to life, or human to human, or vessel to vessel, or avatar to avatar. You are your own universe. You inverse. That's your personal reality. And you can call it the self, you can call it whatever. I just like to give it an expanded, non-localized point of reference. That way I have more space internally to hold concepts when I'm communicating with my parts.
Okay. Well, I mean, the only reason I guess I dove into that is because I just know so many people that struggle with uniformly getting to maintain task.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a personal struggle for myself, and the more I've integrated into myself, like every bit of me that exists, I've found more cohesive ability to stand on task for longer periods of time.
Because more parts of yourself are willing to put their attention on the topic at hand.
Exactly.
Working in unison.
Which, I mean, if we really are talking about working in unison, our body is 8 trillion. Unison working harmonic.
Oh, yeah. And then also the way I like to look at it too is like cells are selves. And we are the selves, all the selves that are here on Mother Earth are her cells. Any one of us, because we're agents on her. But I also see her as a self or a self of the galaxy, or ever expanding, as above, so below.
I will say that, like, within my experience with my own journey into medicinals, that was something that was part of one of my greatest breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's helped me with integrating into understanding self, is the fact that I am 8 trillion selves uniformly working.
Yeah, that's why it's your universe and your reality. Because you are. And who's to say that each of those selves doesn't have an objective experience that's not what it is we're observing? Who's to say that they're not a humanoid being living out a experiential reality in this way?
The way
you ever watch Osmosis Jones?
Absolutely.
Okay,
that's
cool.
That's where I was going with it. It's like Osmosis Jones,
Osmosis
or
Jones,
even the Gangrene Gang from Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, exactly.
If we want to take it even further into childhood nostalgia.
Anyway, dang, this is calling it back. But yeah.
It's just a nice little reflection there. Definitely hits more within our generation.
Let's go on.
It is. It's solid. It's solid.
But yeah, so I, in the same way that, like, what is cancer in a body but cells seeing itself as separate from the other cells and fighting them, attacking them? What is war but cancer on Earth? It's just seeing separation. It's boiled down to seeing unification or seeing separation, operating off of those 2 points. If I see off of separation, I can take and keep, because I have an individual point of reference that can hold more weight and value than others. I can live within hierarchies. If I see unity, if I see oneness, then what I do to you, I do to another. What I take and keep, I restrict from myself.
Environment.
So exactly, and so eventually it clicks into a place where we all just become healthy cells on Earth, and we're just going through a phase of cancer. We need sun's radiation to burn something out.
Just a bit, yeah. We have to be able and willing to leave what is comfortability to then integrate into what can be our reality.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why a lot of religions look at heaven, because they want something better than what's being experienced now. I think they just get lost with realizing that I am living somebody's conceptualized heaven. Somebody at some point way back when was thinking about what heaven was going to be like, and was probably thinking about this exact sensation right here and now. They were thinking about a state of being. And this level of comfortability that we are so lusciously able to enjoy would have been the max conceptual reality that they could have thought about, and that would have been heaven. And so with that reflection, anything that I can think of could be heaven, the greatest good, the greater now, then it becomes almost my duty to then start manifesting that as a potential reality for the posterity here to come, because somebody did that for me.
It's nice to be able to openly have the conversation that is reiterated in the back of my mind on a regular basis.
Yeah, 100%. Putting words to what we already know.
How do you think that relatability not only defines the current reality, but relatability also helps with the unity that we find in others as we identify in mutual experience?
Okay, so intrinsically, all is already in relation to.
Yeah.
So, we only know things through relationship. And, sorry, say the last part of your question again.
I'm already so far past
Yeah,
that.
sorry, no, I know. No, but it was good. It was just,
How do you think that these relatable items cohesively guide the coalitions that we all come together?
Got it. I think just realizing, like I was saying, everything is already in relationship, and holding on to that as one of those ping points and seeing those open up more parallels. It's like
This is how it creates the form.
everything is already connected. The way I like to look at it sometimes is like, you can always raise octave, but you're playing the same 7 notes. Anything you have, any reference point, you're going to reference the same 7 notes. You're just referencing it at a different octave. And so it's a continual repeating pattern, ever going up the musical scale. But all notes need to play simultaneously to make the symphony beautiful.
Yeah, harmonization.
Right, correct. And we appreciate harmonization. I mean, like, I don't think anybody can intrinsically, deny that.
No, because that's what we aim for. It's just harmony with people that resonate at our frequency.
Correct. Because you don't want discordant
Vibing and
notes.
vibration is what actually creates it in the first place.
But like I was trying to say with the same 7 notes, different octave, is that everything is in relation to, and that when we, like at the beginning of our conversation, when we were saying people could relate a lot more, it's like it gets to a point sometimes where it's almost silly that people even see separation at all, because of that same 7 note pattern, that same continually fractaled expression of synchronicity that you cannot deny once you have that kind of vision for that pattern, and from there you start operating off of that unity base, and you'll dip in and out, because we've been creating unconscious egoic forms forever. It hasn't been like a practice like trying to learn a sport or anything like that for most people, but this is where the real battle is right now.
It really is. It's how are we separate, and how are these narratives directing us to be separate?
Correct. Yeah, trying to maintain that ideology of separation: red versus blue, black versus white, good versus evil, angels, demons. Continually putting a narrative on the duality that's experienced, instead
of cohesively where they relate.
Correct. And now, at least through this oscillation of duality, our continual jump through the generations from angels, demons, good, evil, bad, technology, not technology, all of these oscillations, it gives the individual a vast array of mirrors to realize the duality of it all and then leave it. That side of the experience will only ever increase in magnitude and escalate and increase the same 7 notes, higher octave, same 7 notes, higher octave, indefinitely. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to get more and more and more obscure, more and more device. And in its design, it allows us to then step back and then separate from it and be that third point of observation. And eventually we reach that point where every sovereign being steps over that line and duality is left behind.
I'm really glad that we're on the same page because I think that's what we're trying to do here.
But we still operate within perspective. So that's what I'm saying. Like
I wouldn't even just say perspective.
So because people hear like duality's out, which means reality's not experienced. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we get to operate as a unified being. Like
we get to operate understanding that in order for us to really be and continually stay being is by understanding that unifying under the premise of cohesive existence.
For the science nuts out there, it's how we it's how we escape entropy. It's exactly how we escape entropy.
Ooh, cut them like butter right there.
Okay,
so
like
just a quick slice.
I don't get too far into that.
No,
confusing.
we definitely can. I would just presume on a different day.
A different day.
Because like we could go for hours.
And
I think that like, you know, what we've come down to, it's already 6 o'clock. I know you got plans at 7.
7:30, but
what, even better.
Doing okay.
Even better. I mean, we've crossed a lot of thresholds here, at least in conversation, that will definitely
enjoyed it.
Translate to the audience that we want to build and grow and unite in a more well-rounded thought in the first place.
Yeah. Let's start drawing more parallels, less separation.
Absolutely. And I think that with that being said, guys, please keep tuning in. I will have David on more frequently as long as his...
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. He's down. Okay, that's all I needed.
It's going to be fun.
I would very much like to see the rest of my panel come back. I hope that you guys are having a good day too. We all miss you. We love you. Just remember that you are loved. This is the True Value Podcast, and that's what we're trying to bring to everybody is just value of connectivity and understanding. And we'll see you on the next episode. So,
peace out.
What now?